So in 2015, along comes Dr. Carmen Balter and Klaus Dona, and rest in peace, Carmen Balter. I think she unfortunately passed around 2022. But she's long been a champion of trying to find the labyrinth. And she has also done, and she did an excellent documentary series called The Pyramid Code, if anyone's watched that. It features and is based on the work of somebody else who I greatly admire and respect, Abdel Hakim Ayawan, the father of my very good friend Yusuf Ayawan. Also, rest in peace, he has since passed. However, she was looking to see what can we do to find this labyrinth, and she happened to be talking to Klaus Dona. Klaus Dona is also like an alternative author and a researcher, and he said that he happened to have these German and Austrian friends that had invented a new technology that was able to see kilometers into the ground based on space and satellite observations. Sound familiar? So at the time when I talked about this, I couldn't find any information about what this technology was, and I was a little skeptical. However, these days there's a bit more information about what technique Klaus is talking about. There is actually a company that his friends created, and a technology they created. They say that they can go down 6 kilometers, scan into the ground 6 kilometers. Also, I just want to mention while I'm here, Andrew Barker, who's the bald gentleman standing next to Carmen Balter. He's an ex-tech executive. He is also a champion of the labyrinth. He's been funding a lot of this research over the last several years, so just shout out to him and his persistence in trying to uncover and make more people aware of the labyrinth. But this GeoScan systems remote sensing is a similar it's a little different to what you've heard in this conference, but it's a technique that also works from space. This says that they can look some 6 kilometers deep using proprietary processing techniques. It involves modeling light and its interactions with matter based on more complete implementations of Maxwell's equations, coupled with a more complete understanding of the mathematical nature of the constant I, which is the imaginary number representing the square root of -1. And including these new insights makes complete spectral analysis more complete. Filters are then applied, which allows the detection and identification of substances by a means similar to utilizing Fraunhofer absorption lines to observe substances in the atmosphere of stars. That's what I had heard about this technique, that it was used to determine, what's the chemical composition and substances of stars. But apparently you can utilize it to look beneath the ground. And then, of course, which comes along with a lot of these proprietary techniques, we regret having to withhold details of the process involved. It requires intensive computation utilizing computers, software, and special processing hardware to apply our techniques. The best way to know that these techniques are valid is to look at our results, particularly the special study we ordered recently, which detected water in Morocco. So this is, if I have one problem, it's the verification of some of these proprietary scanning techniques is really hard to come by, and when you're making such extraordinary claims, it's a hurdle that has to be overcome at some point. However, this isn't the only scan that's happened here, but just to stick with the GeoScan system that Carmen Balter and Klaus Dona looked at, they did go and they found water in Morocco. So it's been used to find and drill wells. They've also used it to find gold at much deeper depths in Bolivia. They used it to find oil deposits offshore in Nigeria. And this is what they came up with when it came to the labyrinth. So again, we see a modeling, a three-dimensional modeling of these scan results of the labyrinth. It's sort of like you can see the Bawabi Canal, you see the pyramid, and what you're seeing here is basically multiple layers, right? These big chambers, big passages that go down, and you can see some of them descending down into the ground. And this is what they said. So this is if we lay it out on like a flat map with the different levels being shown here in different colors. Basically, they say that the bedrock begins at 18 meters, so you've got sedimentary layers above that, but the bedrock starts at 18 meters. What's in the labyrinth is essentially a network of monumental spaces. We've got some halls that measure 80 meters by 50 meters, so massive open halls, linked by giant corridors at depths of 40, 60, 80, 100 meters and beyond. So think about that, and then think about what the ancient authors were talking about. These giant open halls full of columns, these palaces or these temples, 12 of them, these big open spaces. Talked about that there's 90 steps between different levels. Does that sound like it might go 40, 60, 80 meters down? So we're starting to see some correlation here. And so when these scans come out, again, Louis de Cordier got involved, and they got very excited. Andrew Barker, Carmen Balter, they went back to Egypt. They had a patron, they had a supporter in Egypt who was a real estate tycoon. They tried to go into the Ministry of Antiquities to say, hey, we need to go and investigate this. Look at this stuff. Look what we found. Remember what we did in the Matterhorn expedition? And to quote Louis de Cordier, yet the trip faltered. Our Egyptian sponsor, a real estate tycoon, vanished hours before our meeting. High-ranking bureaucrats shunned our pleas to preserve Hawara, a site decaying in plain sight. Rivalries within the ministry stymied us. Hawara was a pariah, its name a whispered curse. He even tried to make a TV show based about Hawara. And according to Louis de Cordier, this is quoting an NBC Universal executive producer, told him this over the phone, said, "The labyrinth of Egypt is the atomic bomb of ancient history and we aren't going to mess with it." Anyone recognize this term and these gentlemen? You guys all watched Atlantica last night, right? Merlin Burrows. So Merlin Burrows, at the same time in 2015, again, this information has only come out very recently. But here you have Tim Akers, again, rest in peace, Tim, and the CEO, Bruce Blackburn. He was also quoted in the movie he was speaking. But Merlin Burrows also scanned Hawara. I know it was briefly mentioned in the documentary, but they did scan Hawara. Now, I don't know if it got into Tim's background, but he was, of course, ex-military. He worked in the British Army Satellite Scan Security Division. And the way their technology works,